This short snapshot video discusses scientific referencing and the terms and conditions you're likely to encounter. There are multiple styles of citing references that have been developed by universities and professional organisations to guide their authors as to how to reference in their discipline or their particular area. The choice of the style of referencing depends on your discipline. Many disciplines have very specific needs. For example, the American Psychological Association, the APA, has a specific style they require of all their authors. That particular style, the APA style, has now been adapted much more broadly, but it originated with that organisation. So have a look at your discipline and find out what the most likely or what the most common referencing style is going to be. Your lecturers in this course are going to be a good resource to figure that out, but also consult your unit outline for this unit and all your units to find out what the appropriate referencing style is. Getting this right is important. Once you've done that, you can find the relevant guide from the library, either through links through the unit outline and Blackboard, or through the library website itself and clicking on the referencing link on the right hand side. Very importantly, you must follow the referencing style that you choose to the letter, and a referencing style does not just apply to one particular reference or citation, it applies to your entire document, from the first citation to the final reference. The rest of this short video is going to discuss some terms that you will encounter with referencing. The first of those is citation. A citation is an expression that appears within the text of a document that tells the reader that the material immediately preceding it comes from a reference or a resource. It indicates that you have paraphrased someone else's work and provides appropriate acknowledgement of that work. To not produce a citation where it's required is an example of a breach of academic integrity. The form of the citation very much depends on the referencing style you've selected for your document. There's two main styles. The first is author-date. The author-date system is used in the APA and Chicago systems and looks a little bit like this. You can see that the surname, Johns, and the date of the publication, 1999, appear in parentheses at the end of the work that is being cited. The citation in parentheses appears before the full stop in that sentence. So in this particular case, Johns in 1999 demonstrated that the mouse was the most appropriate model for the basic mechanisms of nuclear transfer, and that's the information that's being cited. The main alternative to an author-date system is a numerical or numbers system, for example the Vancouver system. In this case, the text remains exactly the same, and the information in parentheses, the author's name and date, is replaced by a number as a superscript. Where we place the citation depends on what we consider as an author to be the most important part of the information. Is it the information that's being cited, or is it the author that's being cited? These two things describe information prominent referencing and author prominent referencing. And effectively what we're doing is thinking about what the subject of the sentence that we're writing needs to be. In this example, the example from the previous slide, the subject of the sentence is the mouse. This is an example of information prominent referencing. The author considers that the information that's being provided, that the mouse was selected because it was shown to be the most appropriate model, is the most important thing they need to convey to the reader. The alternative to this is making the author the prominent, or the author the subject of the sentence. In this case, the author wants to convey to the reader that it wasn't just any old scientist that did this, it was Johns in 1999 who conducted an experiment to determine the toxicity of aromatic hydrocarbons. Generally speaking, in scientific writing, you'll see that information prominent referencing is much more common. There are cases where we want the author to take prominence, and they're usually where the author is a highly regarded expert in the field, and the author wants to put their work very clearly in the context of the work of that person. But the take-home message here is that we much prefer to use in science information prominent referencing. The placement of citation is important to make sure that the citation is connected to the proper content. In this case, we have three references that refer to the statement temperature tolerances have been determined for gastropods, bivalves, annelids and insects. When we look at more detail though, it turns out that Mertz in 1988 investigated gastropods, Hibert-Birch in 1998 investigated bivalves and annelids, and when Mertz and Hibert-Birch collaborated in 1993, they worked with insects. So it will be more correct and clearer to associate those citations with the specific information that those authors, those particular publications refer to. So we break up the multi-author citation in the first example and replace those citations in their correct place. So now the citation is connected with the proper content. A quotation is a direct repetition or an exact representation of someone's words. The reason we do this is because we want to associate those words with that particular author. We don't want to reference the idea, it's the words that become important. In scientific writing, we tend to avoid quotations unless they're absolutely necessary. The vast majority of the time, we're interested in citing and referencing ideas rather than specific words. If you do choose to include a quotation, they must be in quotation marks and must be followed by a citation. Quoting words and using an exact representation of someone's words without quotation marks is considered plagiarism. The reference list appears at the very end of a scientific document. It's the collation of all the resources used in the text. It provides the reader with the capacity to go and look up the citations and figure out where they can find the information for themselves. Each item in the reference list must be represented as a citation somewhere in the text. This is not a bibliography. It's not a list of all the resources that the author has consulted as they prepared their work. It's just the ones that they cited in the work. Each citation in the text must be represented in the reference list. The reader needs to be able to go and find the reference for each citation. And the format of the references must follow the selected referencing style for the document. This is down to the placement of commas and the way that author names are capitalized. Paraphrasing is the art of putting the ideas and information from other resources into your own words, and is a very important skill in scientific writing. There's often going to be, or usually going to be, some technical or discipline-specific words that you simply cannot replace, but the sentence and paragraph structure should be your own phrasing. The last two things are priority and propriety. Priority refers to prior publication, and it's acknowledging the previous work that provides a context for your argument. Propriety makes sure that the material that you choose to reference is relevant to your argument, that you're choosing the proper information. So whenever you include a citation, we should be considering, or whenever we should be considering priority and propriety. They both deal with the reasoning behind your reference. Is it a right place for you to be citing? Should you be citing the work? And are you citing the right reference material? So when it comes to referencing and citing, remember that we are standing on the shoulders of giants, and we need to acknowledge the work of those giants. But also from a personal perspective, only by providing evidence for your claims through citing and referencing correctly do those claims become valid.